Hey y'all, a question I know just about every homeschooling parent gets asked a whole lot is, why do you homeschool and how did you get started? So that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today.
Come and play with me. Run away with me. Just you and me. Happy days. Every day. We will be okay.
So like I said, a question a lot of us homeschool parents get asked really often is how or why did you get started homeschooling, and that's something I want to share with you really quickly today. I'm wanting to do a series about homeschooling, but because this is one of the questions I get asked the most often, it's one that I'm wanting to touch on very quickly. And there's a lot of side things that I'll probably mention, hey, we'll talk about this in another video, but that's just because I want to kind of keep these as sweet and short and simple as possible so that it's not too much information at once, because I've been there and I know how overwhelming it can be. So how my family got started was when my oldest was getting ready for pre-K. I was ready to call the pre-K center and see what I needed to do to get him enrolled. I had never thought about it really. I was not homeschooled. My husband was not homeschooled. We didn't really know a whole lot of people that had been homeschooled at that point. And when my son was born and when my oldest daughter were born, I was still very much a working mother. And my son had already been enrolled in a preschool program, and so to me it just kind of made sense that that was the road we were going to go down. When I called the pre-K center, I was initially told I needed to bring the typical records that you would expect. I needed to bring his birth certificate, I needed to bring his social security card, and I needed to bring his shot records. And during the conversation, the woman at one point politely stopped our discussion and said, "Ma'am, I need to be very honest with you. After talking to you for a little while, it seems to me like you and your husband will probably make too much money for him to be able to go to preschool for free." She said that the odds of him being in the pre-K program at all were slim, and it would depend on enrollment, and that if he did get in, we would probably end up paying a couple of $100s per month in tuition fees. I was really kind of shocked and taken aback, and I questioned her on that because I thought that if you paid school taxes, your kid got to go to school for free, including pre-K. And I was told no, that I had been misinformed and that pre-K was no longer free for most families, and that if I did want him to go to pre-K for free, that the best thing that I could do would be to come in very grungy clothes, take off my wedding ring, no makeup, look like I had been crying or something, bring all the kids up there, especially with my big belly, and explain to somebody that I was a single stay-at-home mom who was out of work and had no income and just really needed some help to get my kid in pre-K. And her words were, he'll definitely get in, and if he doesn't get into the good pre-K program, he'll get into Head Start, because that's where all the poor kids go. And at that point I was so upset I really just wanted to hang up on the lady, but I tried to hold it together and I wrapped up our conversation. And that night I just talked with my husband about how upset and disgusted I was that this is how I was talked to, and how did she know who I was, and what if, you know, I had been that person who truly did need help. How would I feel hearing those words that were kind of cutting and harsh about, you know, well, this is where the poor kids go. And I also felt like that probably wasn't entirely truthful either, because I know plenty of children that are in Head Start and their families are fine. But it just was really upsetting to me, and it upset me that I was told how to cheat the system, and not only that, but I was told how to cheat the system by somebody that worked for that system. And my husband and I agree that sending him to that pre-K center probably wasn't the best thing that we could do, and we both felt confident that I could teach him all the preschool, pre-K type skills that he would need. I had been going to school for my teaching degree at that point, and we felt like it really was not going to be that big of a challenge to teach him what we felt like he needed to know by the time he started kindergarten. So as time went on, we did start thinking, my phone's going crazy, we started thinking about when he did need to start kindergarten. And this is the same school district that I was told these things was going to be now the district he would be going in for kindergarten. And did we really want that? And so I just started really praying on the situation. And Lord, what would you have our family to do? I know there's not one answer across the board for every family out there. And so I really just went about it prayerfully. I was respectful towards my husband about it. And he is an engineer. He's very a facts and black and white type person. And so that's what I went about doing, as I spent several days and started gathering all the information I could. What did this district look like as far as test scores went, and what would be the average cost of the school uniforms to go to the school here, and what was the average cost of the school lunch, and what was the cost to go to the private school or the charter school, and other districts within about a 30-minute driving radius from where we live. You know, what did their scores look like? Did they require uniforms? What were their average school lunch costs? You know, what were their out of district student tuition fees? And those typically ranged from $1,000 to $5,000 a year per student. And the private school looked like it was going to be about $4,000 just for him to go to kindergarten, and then each year it would become more and more. And then as more children got older, we would have more children in that school. And so it just looked like no matter what we did, it was going to start adding up very, very quickly. And while we believe education is something to be invested in, we also know that we only have so much that we can pour into it before we can't pay for our house or our car. And so we really were concerned, and we were praying about it, and we started talking to other families that we knew and we could confide in and trust to be honest with us. And we talked to parents who had kids in each of these different schools, and also those that homeschooled. And I started looking into information on homeschooling, and then just to really try to pull it all together, I looked up, would homeschool children be accepted into college easily, or would it be more challenging if they were homeschooled? And I was surprised to find out that more and more colleges, especially the Ivy League level colleges, are seeking out homeschool students because they tend to perform better. So that was new. I didn't know that at the time, and I wanted to see, you know, how did they perform with ACT and SAT testing. Were they as good as the public school counterparts? And I found out that they're not, that they actually typically do better. I wanted to know if it would put them at a disadvantage for scholarships. Should they want to apply for scholarships when they got into high school? And again, I found out that it's not an issue, that they can apply for many of the same scholarships. And as a matter of fact, there are more and more universities that have scholarships available specifically for homeschooled students. So that was nice to find out, and I pretty much put all of the information together and handed it to my husband, and just continued to pray that the Lord would help us be of one heart, that either I would be okay with whatever school we sent him to, or that my husband would be okay with homeschooling, but just one way or the other we would be of the same heart, and it would be what the Lord would have us to do. And it was a while of waiting and trying really hard to be patient. And if you know me, I'm not a very patient person when it comes to waiting for something like that. But I tried to wait as patiently as possible. And my husband did finally come to me and say, okay, I will let you homeschool, but just for 1 year, and we'll see how it goes. And so I homeschooled for 1 year. And it went okay. And so he said, okay, you can do it for another year. And so I did it for year 2. And at the end of year 2, he was like, well, do you still want to do it? And I said, well, yeah. So we went into year 3, and now that we're wrapping up year 3, we homeschool from January to October. That's something I'll address in another video. But now that we're getting closer and closer to wrapping up this year, it's not, do you want to, or do you think you still should? It's, well, you will, right? You're going to do it again, right? Like, let's go ahead and order what you need. So I thought that was pretty sweet. And over the time of doing it, I have gone from one child going through school to this year I've had 2. Next year I'll have 3. So it's been interesting. I've been growing in my homeschool walk as I've been growing my student ratio to me. And it's just been really fun, and there's a lot of things that made me glad that this is the choice we made. One of the biggest things I can say is if you are interested in homeschooling, pray, do your due diligence, research everything you can. There's a ton of information. It's really easy to be overwhelmed. That's why I want to do videos just on one specific topic at a time. And also make sure, please, please, please make sure you check out what is the requirement for your state. I live in Texas. Texas is one of the easiest states to homeschool in, which I'm very thankful for. But each state has a different level of requirements for homeschooling. If you don't know what your state requires, but you're interested in finding out, a great resource would be to go to HSLDA.org. I will link it below. But that's going to be a great resource for you to find out what is the requirement in your state as far as homeschooling goes. In Texas, it's extremely easy. Because none of my children had been in school, I did not have to submit a letter that showed my intent to homeschool. There are no records for me to turn in. I don't have to have an approved curriculum. They do not have to go through state mandated testing. There's a lot of things that our state does not require that several others do. And I don't say that to be a discouragement. I just don't want anybody to get into any type of legal trouble. So please, 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 the number one thing you can do if you're interested in homeschooling is go to HSLDA.org. That is a great group. They will give you all of the information you need state by state for what is required in your state for homeschooling, and also you can become a member, and should you ever come across any type of legal issues, they are there to help back you up. It is a great, great resource. I cannot recommend them enough, and there's no affiliation. I'm not getting anything for telling you that. It's just that's what I tell anybody when they become interested in homeschooling. HSLDA.org. Again, I will link it below. If you have any questions or comments, concerns, anything at all, go ahead, post below. I will be happy to get back to you just as soon as I can. I want to do a series of videos on homeschooling, like I said, because I know a lot of people are very interested in it. More and more kids are being homeschooled every year. It's just a very growing, I hate to call it a trend, but I think that's what a lot of people are calling it. It's a growing option, I think is a better way to put it. It is a growing, viable option for most families. So if you have anything at all you want to know, I'm an open book. Please, please, please post below. I'm happy to answer. And you will see more videos about homeschooling coming from us soon. So I hope you have a great day, and good luck to you whatever your decision is. I am sure that no matter what decision you make, it will be a blessing for your family.